Sydney course, the presentation is geared to people doing this for the first time. So there's a lot of information in the, hang on, one more person. There's a lot of information in here. It's very much geared towards people doing this for the first time and just trying to finish as best they can. If anyone's doing it from a performance perspective, I can definitely answer those questions as well. But tonight I'm really just going to be looking at it as the people giving it a crack for the first time. So the first thing that I'm going to say is when it comes to racing events like this, if you haven't raced it before, I would say don't focus on the outcome. All right. So some of you are going to go to the race and think, oh, I want to break 5 hours. I want to, whatever. When you go out there, those are all outcomes. So what you need to do when you go out there is you need to focus on the process, because if you can do the best process, you are going to get the best outcome. So, sorry, there's just a few more people jumping into the queue, so I'm just going to add them in.
Dan, I'll add them in. You keep talking.
All right, excellent. I'll ignore the little bell then. So the first thing I'd say is just when you go out there, if you focus on doing the best swim, the best bike, the best run you can do from a pacing perspective, getting your nutrition down packed, you're going to have the best outcome. And whatever time that is the best time that you get on the race day. So what I would say is if you've done this multiple times or you've done it before, by all means go out and say, I'm going to beat last year's time. I'm going to beat a certain goal time that I've got. But for the very first time, you go out there and you follow the process. The process is going to give you the best time that you can get on the race day. And then you can assess, your training and what you did there to go out next year and give it another crack when you're out there. So that's the first tip that I give people when you're there. All right. So the only things that you guys get to control in the race is your attitude. You get to control your pacing and you get to control all your decisions when you're out there. You don't get to control your speed. Okay, so always keep that in mind when you're out there on race day. All right, what I'm going to go through today is some logistics. So I'm going to talk about what happens the day before you race, what happens on the morning that you race. The Dean is going to go through nutrition and hydration with everyone. And then I'm going to talk about pacing for the swim, the bike, the run, and some specific tips and tricks for that course to help get everyone through it. And I'll also talk about the actual course and show up the maps and things like that as well. If anyone's got any questions during that, just put your hand up or just speak on the speaker or type a question in the chat. I'm quite happy to answer stuff as I go along. I will spend time at the end answering any questions that people have as we go through. The other thing I will do, I will record this. So I will send everyone a video recording of it tomorrow sometime. So if you want to go through parts of it again, you can rewind it and go over what I said. If it was useful to you as many times as you want. All right, so first thing that we're going to go through is the logistics of the course, particularly the day before. So for those of you, majority of you probably know the Regatta Centre and have been there before. But when you go out there on the day before to rack your bike and collect your stickers and helmet gear and timing chips and all those things, you will come in and you will park on this side of the Regatta Centre. So one of these side gates will be open down through here. You will park in through here. You'll do a big long walk over the bridge and they will have the registration tent and everything in there where you go pick everything up. Okay. So your actual swim course is right here. You'll have your transition area where you will put your bike in through there. All right. A couple of quick tips for race morning as well is there will be portaloos and stuff over on the racing side, but there are a couple of toilet blocks over here. Okay, so these are handy, particularly on race morning, to go use if you're nervous, because the lineups for the portaloos obviously can get pretty long when you've got 1,500 people wanting to race. All right, so the logistics of the day before. So everyone the day before needs to take their bike down. You need to go pick up your race kit, which has all your stickers for your helmets, for your bike, and your timing chips. And you need to put your bike into transition. Okay, so that's what you've got to do the day before. In previous years, you did have to book a time. Someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you had to book a time this year. I think they're just saying come between 9:30 and 3:30 and go do it. So I would always encourage people to go down early, get it over and done with, and go home. I think that's the best way to do it. But also, something goes wrong, you've got enough time to go fix it and manage it. So I would encourage people to go towards the start of the day when you're out there and go through it. All right, when you go down there and you go register, they will give you a race pack. All right, your race pack will have everything that you need to pop on your bike and your helmet ready for the day. So the things that you'll get is you'll get a swim cap, okay, with whatever color you nominated to do the swim in. You will get a bib to pop onto yourself when you do the run. You will get a sticker that goes on the back of your bike so that they can catch you drafting, as well as they can actually see you for race photos. You'll also get tattoos or temporary tattoos to go on your arm and your leg. They will give you a wristband to go through, and that's pretty much everything that you'll get for race day. And one of these is a sticker that will go on your helmet. Okay, so you pick all that up the day before the race. Once you go pick that stuff up, you go put it on your helmet, you go put it on your bike. You can go home and put your tattoo on probably the day before or race morning so it doesn't rub off. And you can put your wristband on the day before as well. Okay. Tips to do the day before. So I'm always a big fan of being very organized. All right. So when you go out there, hopefully early, you pick up your stuff, you put your bike in, you get everything ready. Before you guys go down to even go collect that stuff, I would encourage you to go home and have everything that you need to take on race day popped out on your dining table or on a bed or somewhere where you can have everything there. So once you have everything out, you can go through the race in your head and you can make sure you have absolutely everything. So, you know, on the table, you can have your swim cap, you can have your goggles, and you've got, you know, your tri-suit, you've got your Garmin watch, you've got your race shoes, you've got your socks, you've got your helmet, you've got your glasses. Everything that you need should be out on the bed or the dining table. And then you should know in the morning that everything there either needs to be on you or popped in a bag to take on race day. So I'm a big believer in going through the race in your head, have absolutely everything out there, pack it all away, or have the last minute stuff there like your tri-suit sitting out so that you don't forget anything in the morning, because you know the table's clear. You've grabbed everything you need. The only thing you probably need to grab on top is just whatever cold drinks you need to grab from the fridge to take out there for race day. Okay. The dean will go through nutrition stuff in more detail, but the other thing I would say is don't do anything special the day before. Okay. So whatever you're doing normally on, you know, before your major training sessions is good. Don't suddenly drink 8 liters of water or something if you're not used to it. Okay, don't start eating things differently to what you're using it. If you are traveling out to the race, where possible, I'd heavily encourage you to cook your own food so that you can eat stuff that you're very used to, as opposed to going to a local restaurant, if possible, when you're out there as well. All right, the logistics of race day. So the race gates, or the gates to the regatta centre, open at 4:30 in the morning. Okay, so the earlier you get there, the easier it is to park. So you've got the huge area out there, but you will find that all the parking spots up this end go very quickly. If you show up late, you will be parking somewhere here, and this is about a 1K walk to here. And so just in your head, know that you'll be doing a 15-20 minute walk to get in if you tend to get there late. The other thing that I'll say is Old Castlereagh Road is 1 lane, and there's about 1,000 cars trying to get in on race morning. So the later you go, this can get quite backed up because it moves at the speed that people can get into the gates and the speed at which people can park. So I always encourage people to get there earlier so that you don't get stuck in that traffic, because if you get in the bottleneck, it can be a bit stressful if you're sitting there thinking, I've got to get in transition in 30 minutes, and it's going to take ages to park and then walk in and all those things. So if you can get there earlier, it's definitely a good idea. Transition opens at 5 a.m. in the morning. When you get there on race morning, your bike will already be there. But the things that you will typically do on race morning is go put your drinks and your food on your bike. You'll generally go put your Garmin or electronic toys on your bike on race morning. And then you put your cycling shoes in as well, and anything that you want on the ground ready for race day. You'll also go pump up your tires too. Okay, so the day before, you'll have popped your bike in. You'll generally just pop your bike in and not leave anything else there. Otherwise, you run the risk of, you know, your nutrition getting taken or your Garmin getting taken or anything like that. Just taking the basics, do the rest on race morning. The other thing that opens up on race morning is your street gear bag area. So for those of you that have family or friends there, you can, you know, after you've done your transition and you're getting ready to line up, you can go give them your clothes and take your backpack and whatever else and look after your stuff. If you don't have friends and family there, or if they're walking around cheering, there is a street gear bag area that you can go dump your gear in, so that it's just safety stored away and you go pick it up after the race. That also opens at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that will be right near the swim start area as well. All right, once that's done, you wait around patiently for the race to begin. And the age groupers will start rolling into the water about 7:15 in the morning. So typically on race day, everyone will be, this is your transition area. The swim start is here, and everyone is nervously hanging out on the grassed area in through here. Okay, and you will all just slowly walk down and do your swim start down through there. So if you've got friends and family, just organise to meet them somewhere on the grassy area there, and you'll be able to find them. Okay, I know for us, we'll have a flag somewhere. So if you want to come hang out with us on race morning, just come look for myself or Nadine or Jody, and we'll be there on race morning for you as well. All right. The transition area, the dump your gear in, is the concrete area over here. All right. So race morning, as well as the day before, once you go up and over the bridge, this area will all be fenced off. You'll be given a race number, and you'll need to rack your bike at the race number when you're there. Okay. So just remember where your area is when you do it. All right. A couple of tips for race day. One, eat your normal breakfast that you do before training. Again, Nadine will cover off nutrition stuff. Make sure you get there early. So gates open at 4:30. That's pretty excessive. But, you know, I'd probably encourage you, if you're racing, to be aiming to be there before 6 a.m. Definitely in and parking at 6 a.m. because you've got to walk all the way across. You've got to rack your bike. It gives you time to just chill out and relax a little bit. And also, if something goes wrong, gives you a little bit of time to do it. All right. It's not a bad idea to have a spare towel just to cover your gear and pop things over it in case it rains on race morning as well. And the big one is always, you know, if you need to go to the bathroom, try to go early because everyone gets in the water at the same time. Everyone is trying to use the bathrooms at the same time. So there are bathrooms on the side where the car parking is. There are also portaloos on the side of where the race start is. But ideally, you know, get yourself organised and get there as quickly as possible. Jody, do you have a question?
No, I have a trick. If you go down past where the cafe and restaurant is, there's some extra toilets down there, which not as many people know about. So
yes.
They're often worth going to.
Yeah, for the ones that don't know it, that's up on the grandstand. So you're
the ones down at the rowing part. The extra
down here.
Yeah, there's some toilets in there.
I didn't know there's toilets in there. So, that's the rowing building. So apparently there's toilets there as well. I thought you meant the ones that are up in the cafe. Okay.
No, they get busy as well, but the not as many people know about the ones down the bottom there.
Okay, there you go. There's another helpful tip for everyone. All right. We're going to go through just strategy for race day as well. So the biggest parts of strategy are obviously pacing. So making sure that you are pacing yourself appropriately. The other massive one is nutrition. Okay. So when you're out there on race day, your pacing really is the rate at which you're burning fuel up. The type of fuel you're burning depends on your heart rate and your intensity. The nutrition side is how much you can eat and when you go on race day. So you're always going to finish the race in a calorie deficit. Okay, but you need to make sure that when you're racing, that your pacing is appropriate for your fuel burning rate, but also for the amount of fuel you're having at the same time. So before I touch on all the pacing from a swim, bike and run perspective, I'm going to pass it on to Nadine, and she's going to talk about nutrition strategies for race day as well as the days before. Okay, so Nadine, off you go.
Cool. Hi, everyone. So it's not letting me change screens. Dan, can you change the slide for me? Yeah. Oh, good. Cool. So 470.3 distance, we need both of our energy systems working. So you've got a with oxygen and a without oxygen system, your aerobic and your anaerobic. So for a lot of you, you've been doing long, slow runs at long, slow pace. And a lot of that is not just about customizing your ligaments and your tendons and your muscles for being able to do the time on the legs, but it's also to get your energy systems used to burning different fuel sources. So when you're running long and aerobically, you're using fat stores. We've got infinite fat stores in our body, but as soon as the intensity of your running gets over about 75%, you start burning carbohydrates, which is the glycogen that you store in your muscles and your liver. We have big glycogen stores in our muscles and a little bit in our liver, but for most of us, we've only got 90 to 120 minutes worth of glycogen stores. And once we run out of those, that is when you hit the wall, when you bonk, when you feel fatigued, things get a bit fuzzy, or suddenly you just feel like your muscles have got nothing more to give. So this is where getting this energy balance correct is really important, but also, as Dan mentioned with the pacing, the fuel has got to match what you're doing. So if you're out there cruising and having a lovely day, you're probably burning fat and you'll probably be okay. But if you're putting your foot down to go up the hill, if you're trying to run at certain paces, you got to make sure you've got enough energy to be able to support that, because your body doesn't have enough unless you can do a 70.3 in under 2 hours. It hasn't got enough to be able to support you for that. So with that, as an endurance athlete, our bodies are going to be able to adapt between our fat stores and also using our carbohydrates, but we need to be able to top that up as we go. The other thing with being an endurance athlete is research shows that dehydration is actually the highest amongst endurance athletes. So basically, if we lose 2% of our body weight in dehydration, your aerobic endurance is the first thing that disappears, which is the primary source of what you guys are going to be using on race day. The thing that follows next is going to be your strength and your power, which is why then your muscles suddenly start to drop away. You feel like you've just got no energy. So as an example, if you're a 70 kilo athlete and you lose 2%, that's 1.4 liters an hour that you are losing. And as a guy, you're going to tend to lose a lot more. You lose a lot more sodium or table salt. And if the weather's hot and it's super sunny, you're going to be losing more than that again. So this is where not only your hydration, but also your fueling becomes really, really important for race day. So looking at race day fueling, carbs are your fuel, protein is your recovery. So eating a protein bar for breakfast on Sunday morning, eating protein shakes, having protein powders in your cereals, your oats, it's not helpful. Your body can't use protein as a source. It will use what it needs, and then it excretes the rest of it through your kidneys. So for you guys, the night before the race, having a big steak, again, it's not helpful because your body's not going to be using that on race day. We need carbohydrates for you guys. You need the fuel. You've got the fat stores. Your body's already got those, but you need the carbohydrates. They are your big thing. So as Dan said, eating your normal breakfast on race morning is important, but you need to look at it and make sure it's not super high in fat or super full of protein. So a really good race breakfast example is a couple of pieces of white bread toast with some peanut butter, banana, honey. It's about 500 calories. Having that with something like a glass of apple juice, that's going to give you about 600 to 700 calories, but you've got primarily carbohydrates with not a lot of fat and not a lot of protein. So exactly what your body's going to need. And for a lot of you, this is 3 hours, 4 hours before your race is even starting, because you've got to get there, then you've got to rack all your stuff, you've got transition. So oats are another good option. Put some banana in there, put some peanut butter in there, bagels with that same kind of thing, jam, honey. Think simple breakfast. If there was ever a day to go and eat a big bowl of Nutri-Grain and a couple of pieces of toast, this is actually a good day to do that, because your body is going to need that further on in the day. On the bike, real food's a really good example. You've probably heard the saying, you want to drink your electrolytes and eat your food. You don't want to be drinking carbs. For some people, drinking carbohydrate mixes in your bottle is great. It's easy wins. But for a lot of people, once you put a couple of gels on top of that, you actually end up having a gut that's not very happy about it. And the reason for that is when you are exercising at this level, the blood's all gone from your guts because it's all gone to your muscles. So your digestion slows down. So if you put sugar on top of sugar on top of sugar into your gut, it's going to get to the point where it can't absorb it anymore. And you've got about a 6 to 8 hour window before you're going to get rid of that if you've really overdone it on the extra sugar. So the thing you want to remember is make sure you've got a mix of stuff on the bike. So having a Vegemite sandwich in transition to mop up any of the gross lake water that you happen to have drunk on the swim, while you're getting your wetsuit off, shove that in and chew on that. Really good option, because it gives you something solid in your belly before you get on the bike. And for most of you, you've got a good 2 to 3.5 hours for that to digest before you get on the run. Other simple things, muesli bars are really good, LCM bars, lolly snakes, any stuff that you can buy at the supermarket that's got about 100 calories and 20 grams of carbs is what you want. It's the equivalent of a sports gel, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper too. So if you haven't tested that kind of stuff in your training, I recommend, if you've got some rides and things over the next week or so, have a go and see how they fit, how they taste for you. So the recommendation for carbohydrates, you've probably heard everybody say, oh, you need 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates an hour. If you've never raced and trained with 90 grams of carbs an hour, now's not the time to start. So I'd recommend starting at maybe 40 or 50 if you've never actually paid attention to how much you're taking on. For most of you, that's kind of 2 gels. But realistically, 60 grams is probably a baseline of where you need to be for an event of this distance. Yeah. Now, for all of those, you want a mix of 2-to-1 glucose and to fructose, or maltodextrin to fructose. So most of the gels that you will take on are a 2-to-1 ratio. Your body can only take on 60 grams of glucose. So I don't recommend doing really, really heavy sugary gels, because your body will get sick of those. Gels, though, are great for the run because they're easier to get in. They digest. If you don't like gels or they don't sit well, something like the Cliff Blocks, Goo Chews, any of those kinds of things are really helpful for the run. Plus, you've often got Coke at the aid stations, which is a saving grace, with a bit of caffeine to help you along your way as well. Always recommend, though, with gels on the run that you try and take them just before an aid station so that you can wash them down with water, because they are really concentrated, and it is that concentration of sugar that makes your gut unhappy if your body's not used to it. So realistically, you want to aim for about 250 to 400 calories per hour on the bike, which for most of you will give you about 60 to 90 grams of carbs and 250 to 400 calories, preferably low GI foods. So that's white bread, a croissant, a croissant with some chocolate Nutella on it is amazing. Your body can digest that really quickly. A hot cross bun, if you've still got one left over in your freezer. Really good options, because they've all got about 40 grams of carbs and about 200 calories, plus they're easy to eat. So again, if you haven't tested this stuff, you've got 2 weeks to kind of have a crack and see how that fits for you in any of your mini brick sessions or any training you've got left. Ideally, though, you want to finish eating about 30 minutes before the end of the bike. And if you're taking on gels on the run, or if you're happening to take on caffeine, that's probably the time that you'd want to take on a caffeinated gel if you were doing that. Again, if you haven't done it till now, don't start now, but that's when you want caffeine in your system to help you for its purpose of giving you that kick for your run leg from there. So for race day, in terms of hydration, you want to be aiming to about 50 to 750 mils worth of water per hour. Remember, water's not going to hydrate you. It's certainly going to help, but you need the electrolyte. You need the sodium that's going to support that. And if you're a really heavy sweater and you get lots of white on your suit, or your skin gets a bit crusty, then that's a really good indicator that you probably need to be taking on some pure electrolytes if you don't have them in a carbohydrate mix that you've got in your drink bottles as well. So even something as simple as like Hydrolyte Sport from Woolworths is a really great option for that. You want to avoid foods on the run if you can. As I said, the gels, the blocks, the chews are pretty good. Coke at the aid station is good as well. I would avoid using the electrolyte mix that they serve at the aid station, even if you've trained with it. And the reason for that is, though, it is normally mixed by a 12-year-old with a big stick in a garbage bin. So the potency of what you're actually going to get may not actually be to the level that A, you've trained with, and B, that's good for you. If you get it and it's too strong, it could upset your gut, especially on the run. So if you can, even just get one of those little fluid, like it's like a little mini gel flask if you run with like a nerd belt or something like that. Even having your own flask with your own little electrolyte mix in it can be a really good option if you need to drink your carbohydrates on the run and your electrolytes on the run. So before race day, you need to know your pacing strategy. So as I said to Dan, like you need to have a rough idea of how long things are going to take you so you can work out what you need. If you forget to eat or if you struggle to eat, set a distance timer on your watch or on your bike computer if you've got one, So it might be every 20 minutes. On the bike, it might be every half an hour. On the run, it might be every couple of Ks. But use the aid stations on the run. If you take on a gel after every second aid station and wash it down at the next aid station with water, that's a pretty good indicator that you've taken something on probably every 10 to 15, 20 minutes throughout the run. Make sure you've practiced your nutrition strategy. If you're sitting here right now going, oh shit, I haven't done any of this, that's okay. We can help you with that. But, you know, you've got some really good ideas now that you can practice over the next weekend at least to just see how things work for you as well. Don't go and overhaul the apple cart now, though. Just do what you know you can do and maybe add an extra couple of little things in that might help you on race day. The other really big thing, and this is why people get sick in the next 2 weeks when they are tapering, is everybody suddenly cuts back what they're eating really rapidly. Or they go, well, I'm going to lose a couple of kilos so that I'm lighter for race day. It is the worst thing you can possibly do now in the next 2 weeks because it increases your risk of injury and illness. But more than anything, it's going to impair your performance. If you put your body into a deficit, you got to get yourself back out of it. And then on race day, you're putting it into an even bigger hole. So please eat normally. If you happen to know what a kind of regular intake is for you in terms of calories, that's where you need to be over the next couple of weeks so that your body is not fighting any form of deficit. It's sitting in a really good neutral place. The other thing you shouldn't be doing in the next 2 weeks is training fasted because, again, the same problem occurs. You put your body into a deficit and then you're digging yourself out of a hole and probably not consuming the optimal energy that you should be to support your race day performance. You want to stay well hydrated. Your urine is the best indicator. If it's a pale kind of lemonade color, you know you're doing all right. If it's any other further yellow shades, then you know that you really need to be taking on probably more electrolytes and water. If it's very, very clear, then you certainly need more electrolytes. So in that week up to, don't drink heaps, but just please make sure you're monitoring to make sure that you're at a reasonable level, because starting race day dehydrated is going to lead to probably not the best result that you'd be hoping for. Now, carb loading is best done 24 hours prior. Research shows you only really need 24 hours in order for it to absorb, so you don't need to start eating like a crazy person Thursday next week. Saturday is fine. Again, eat your normal foods. Eat your race breakfast the day before. So if it's the peanut butter on the toast, eat that the day before. It's going to give you more. You don't need a lot of fat and a lot of protein. So that's the thing. Don't have a steak the night before. A simple family pasta that you would normally have with maybe an apple juice and some garlic bread, something like that is fine. It doesn't need to be fancy, but what you want to stay away from is anything that's got a skin. So potatoes, carrots, a lot of green vegetables, anything with a lot of fiber is going to come back and get you on race morning. So just make sure you monitor. Toasted sandwich for lunch the day before is great, just your normal foods, but you don't want to have a lot of protein and a lot of fiber, and fat the night before is not great either because it slows your digestion down. So think normal, simple foods. Anything you could get from Woolies is fine, whatever you would eat with your family, but just minimize the amount of protein and fat that's in there. And as I said to you, your big brekkie options are normally your most simple ones. Bowl of cereal and a couple of pieces of toast with jam are really good as well. So with all of that, if anyone's going, oh my God, I actually don't know what I really need, there is actually a real science behind getting optimal performance with your nutrition. So if you'd love to have a chat about that and go, actually, I'd like a really good plan for what I need to do and what I need to eat the day before and a meal plan for race day, I am more than happy to meet with people that haven't really looked into this. I know a lot of you are already working on this, but yeah, I am going to do some race planning sessions. So Dan will have my email in the end of the presentation and also the follow-up email tomorrow. So if you've got any questions regarding your nutrient timing, how much do you actually need on race day? Because for most of you, I guarantee you, what you think you need and what you actually need are going to be two very different numbers. So we've got to get you to that optimal energy availability, and that's takes a bit of working out. So feel free to email me. I'm happy to chat to anybody regarding that, or even if you just want to brainstorm what it is you're doing and run your plan by me, I'd be more than happy to help with all of that. So any questions just quickly regarding nutrition before Dan moves on to pacing and race day? Don't be scared. There's no stupid questions. No? Looks like we're good. You guys are going to nail it. Easy.
All right, cool. All right, I will take over. So what I'm going to talk about now is the actual courses, and I'm going to talk about the pacing for the courses. So for those of you who haven't done the swim or seen the swim there before or done an Ironman swim, you will start at like Lemmings. So you're all getting the water 4 people at a time. So the way it will work is you'll all be lined up here and corralled on the hill. You'll all have cap colors. So I think the cap colors are in the next slide. Yep. So this actually, someone can correct me because this is the cap colors from last year. I just assume it's the same one because I couldn't find the new ones for this year. But they'll have different cap colors depending on what time you said you were going to do. So what happens is you will pick up your cap color in your race kit. And so some of you will have green, blue, pink, whatever. You will see on the hill, people will line up roughly in their cap colors when they're there. Okay, so you'll see, you know, mostly blues, then it'll fade into pink and whatever when you're out there. You will then all walk down and there will be a pontoon across the water here. You will eventually get onto the pontoon and the little buzzer will go and 4 of you will jump in the water and you'll start your swim. Okay, the actual swim course is pretty straightforward. You'll swim up, across, back through, under the bridge, across, and into transition. Okay. The couple of the things that I'll say for those of you that are strong swimmers, just jump in, dive in the water, just get into your pace and swim it through. For those of you that find swimming a bit scary or swimming in mass swimming apprehensive, you don't need to dive in. You can slowly slide yourself off the edge and duck yourself into the water. You can pin drop when you go in. You don't have to do any sort of dramatic dive when you go in, okay? The other thing that I'll say is if you're a confident swimmer, you're just going to jump in, you're going to get to your pace, you can do freestyle, it's fine. For those of you who aren't strong swimmers, it's perfectly okay to jump in and do breaststroke. It's okay to do backstroke. It's okay to just tread water if you need a breather when you're out there. There are loads and loads of support guys, crews on little kayaks when you're there as well, okay? You are allowed in the race, if you need a breather, to go swim across to one of them and you're allowed to hold on to them. Okay, so if you are struggling on race day, if you're a bit anxious in the water, if you just need a break because you're tired, you are allowed to go up to the kayak guys and hang off the edge and have a chat to them and then get ready to go again. The only thing that I will say is if you do that, don't look panicked. Don't look anything like someone that wants to drag you out of the water because their job is water safety, okay? But it's perfectly okay to do those things when you're out there as well. When you are there, a couple of tips that I have for you is you will be swimming directly into the sun in one of the directions, okay? So it's a very good idea to have goggles that are tinted on race day because if you're swimming straight into the sun, it's difficult to see. It is definitely good. It's also a good idea to have relatively new goggles because new goggles will not fog when you're out there as well. Make sure you've used your goggles at least once or twice to make sure they don't leak or anything like that on race day. It will be a wetsuit swim. So for anyone worried about whether it's a wetsuit, you will 99.9% sure get a wetsuit when you're out there. It actually looks like it'll be closer to being wetsuit mandatory. So if you don't have a wetsuit, I'd highly recommend you try to borrow one in the next 2 weeks before you go out there. If you are new to wetsuits and swimming in them, make sure you've at least swum in one to test it out and see what it feels like before race day as well. The other tips I will give you is get help putting your wetsuit on. So I will be out there on race morning with a little flag and you can come find me. I'm quite happy to help anyone put their wetsuit on a race morning. But there is a skill to putting those on and making sure that you're not getting restricted around your shoulders on race morning as well. So definitely take your time on race morning to get all that ready to go. The course itself is simple because it's all right-hand turns when you're through there. The course itself, when you're swimming up this way and when you're swimming back this way, the tip that I'll give you is this is the rowing site. So there are rows of buoys in the water. There is a chain connecting all those buoys in the water. So if you are swimming up, you can swim up along the buoy chain line. And if the water is clear enough, you will be able to see the chain sitting 1 meter or 2 underneath the water. If that's the case, you don't need to sight because you just follow the chain and use it as a lane line, he leaves as the lane marker line underneath the water. So that is definitely possible in that direction, and it is definitely possible in that direction. Okay, it's not possible for the other parts. But that's a huge tip that you can use because it means that, there's probably at least a K and a bit of racing here or swimming that you don't need to lift your head up and sight constantly when you're out there. So the other tips that I'll give people is, Arthur's got a question. What's your question, Arthur?
Sorry, where's the chain again?
Where's the what, sorry?
The chain that you said to follow
the chain.
line?
So you can, I don't know if you can just see, but you can see these little dots in the water just here.
Yeah.
But there's dots all the way along because they hold the rowing lanes markers in. And so what you'll see is there'll literally be a chain. There'll be like 10 rows of chains that are running underneath the water in through here. And so as you swim up, you'll be able to swim close to one of the buoy lines because they're probably 10, 15 minutes, 10, 15 meters wide. And so if you swim up, you should be able to see it'll be really obvious on race day, but there's a chain underneath the water. And it just means that you can swim and follow the chain and you don't have to look up, which just takes a big skill element away. And the sighting will slow you down anyway. But then you can sort of get to here and you've just got to sight your way across. You can follow the chain again, all the way along here. And then from here, you're going to need to have to sight, but it probably takes away 2/3 of the sighting.
So is it best to stay to the far left and then obviously on both sides?
Whichever, you'll probably find that you're swimming in between a lane somewhere. So just either stick to the far left or the far right, whichever side. But the thing is, when you guys jump in, there's 1,500 of you. So you'll find everyone's doing the same thing. So you'll jump in and you'll see the guys that are faster generally know what they're doing. And so you'll see that they're following the chain line. So whatever they're doing, generally you just jump in and follow the same thing. The good thing about this swim is it's not tidal. There's no current pulling you anywhere really. There'll be a very small current running either up in this direction or very small current running in that direction, but it's nothing of note. But the chain line is definitely something you can follow on race day.
Perfect, thank you.
If the water's clear enough. So sometimes it's not, as shown by the lovely green stuff, whatever that is, that you got on the Strava Google image picture. A couple of tips for race day. Everyone would have nominated their cap color already. Generally speaking, because you are drafting, because you have a wetsuit on, and because everyone sort of fudges their numbers, generally you'll swim faster, or you're trying to swim faster than your allocated time. So if you think, look, you are a 33-minute swimmer, okay, and this is under 33 minutes, then probably try to push yourself up higher in the group, because if you can jump in the water with people that are faster, you can draft off them. Okay, so same thing. If you've said, oh, look, I think I'm in this zone, but, I think I probably towards 37 minutes, swim to the front of the group. Okay, because when everyone's lining up, there's not a distinct, pink group stops, blue group starts. You'll just see like there's a merging. So if you're in blue cap color, there's no reason why you can't be swimming partway through the pink group or even the orange, or maybe not the orange group, because that's different group. But there's no reason, no one will stop you, because your timer starts when you cross the barrier to get in. So it doesn't really matter what cap color you are, because your timing chip goes off when you jump onto off the timing mat when you're up there. So I would always encourage people to basically try to swim in a group that's 5 minutes faster than they think they can actually go. Okay. A few tips for race day. The big tip I can give you is following the chain, the buoys down there. When you're actually coming back up and through, if the sun is in your eyes, try to use landmarks that are easy to spot. So once you get to here somewhere, there's not going to be any chain line to follow, but you might not be able to see everything super clearly, but you'll be able to distinctly see the bridge. It'll be obvious. There's the big Olympic rings on it. So if you look up and you can't quite see exactly where you're meant to be swimming, but you can see the bridge, use the bridge as your sighting point. Once you get to the bridge, it's probably only a 50-meter swim. So this buoy, you'll turn right. It's probably only 100 meters to that point. It should be relatively easy when you go out there. It's also useful because you don't have a good concept of time when you're out there, but you will see there's heaps of markers on the side, which will tell you how far. They're markers for rowing. But you'll effectively be able to see how far down the swim you are. okay, when you guys are out there, because you're going to swim up, I don't know, 700 meters, swim across 100, 700, and then have the rest of your 1.9K swim in there. But you'll be able to see markers as you go through. So you can sort of mentally, oh, there's the grandstand. Oh, there's that intersection. Okay, there's that house, the sighting house or whatever they use for rowing there. And they're good indicators as you go through to sort of see how far you are when you're out there. A couple of tips, take your time putting your wetsuit on. Don't rush it and tear it on race day. I'd encourage you to put your wetsuit on by using a plastic bag over your arms and legs to make sure your arms slide through nice and easily. It's also a good idea to get the white gloves, the white boxing gloves, so that you don't pinch your wetsuit and tear it on race day as well. If you've got body glide or some sort of lubricant to pop around your neck is a good idea on race day, because the wetsuit can rub on the back of the neck and you lose a bit of skin, and then that makes it pretty painful when that stings for the rest of the day when you're out there. I'd encourage you to have goggles with tint and maybe even a set without tint if you've got the luxury of that, and then choose which set to use on race morning when you're out there. If it is sunny, the tinted ones are a good idea. If it's super foggy, maybe the clear ones are a good idea when you're out there. Drafting off people makes a massive difference. Okay, so if you watch geese fly in formation, they fly in a V pattern. You want to swim in the V pattern the same as the geese do. You can get dragged to a much quicker time. So if you're out there, you've drafted before, or you've got the opportunity to do it, try to swim with your head next to someone else's hip. Okay, because then you are swimming in the V pattern that they have. And then ideally, if they're faster than you, they will drag you to a faster time when you're out there. The good thing is because you guys jump in the water 4 people at a time, they're giving you 3 drafting buddies. Okay, and 4 seconds ahead, there's a bunch of other people, and 4 seconds ahead, there's more people again. So you'll find drafting is relatively easy to do in these races because everyone's been chucked in the water in one big Congo line when they go out there. Your swim technique is going to give you the fastest time. So when you go out there, I would encourage you to jump in the water and treat the start of the swim the same as any warm-up to any pool set that you've got. All right, you jump in, you swim at 7 out of 10 for effort. If you maintain that pace, it's eventually going to become 8, 8.5 out of 10 for effort at most, but that will give you your best time. Do not jump in the water and sprint off the start unless you think you're going to win the day. I would definitely encourage you to just cruise through it, because hard swim, slow swim is a couple of minutes. You got a long day ahead of you. So just get into a good rhythm when you're out there. I'd also encourage you to focus on your technique when you're out there. So for me, catch, pull, hip rotation are going to make the biggest difference to everyone, because you're in a wetsuit. So you're nice and floaty in the water. So your catch and pull is going to make the biggest difference when you're out there. It also gives you something to think about that's not, swimming for 1.9Ks when you're out there. Sighting I touched on, but the more often you sight, the slower you're going to go. So anyone who's done stroke correction with me will know that the first thing I teach everyone to do is don't lift your head up. But obviously, if you need to sight, you need to lift your head up. So you want to do it as infrequently as possible. So if you've got the opportunity to use the chain line, you can keep your head down in the water, breathe normally for the majority of it. In the patches that you do need to sight, I would say every 10 strokes, lift your head up. See what you need to see, put your head back down, count your 10 strokes out, lift your head up again, redirect yourself, and do it that way, okay? If you're lucky and you're good at drafting, and the guy that you're drafting off or lady you're drafting off is swimming straight, you might be able to extend the sighting out a little bit longer if you trust them in what they're doing as well. All right, last thing, you're all going to be out there for 25 minutes to 70 minutes when you're out there. You will be a little bit wobbly when you come onto land, and particularly if you've got a wetsuit. Remember, the wetsuit is filled with water. That first couple of steps, it'll actually feel quite heavy until you start getting going in the water. Okay, I think that's it for the swim. Has anyone got any questions about the swim? No, everyone's a confident swimmer. All right, cool. So when you come in off the swim, you're going to swim under the bridge around the side, and you'll come up onto land via the boat ramp, and you'll come into transition here, okay? First tip is remember where your bike is, okay? It's really easy to lose it on race day. There will be, 20 rows and all these things, but just count in your head. And even when you're just setting up your bike, walk to the swim exit and walk yourself out and go, okay, I'm 3 rows down, and then I'm, 6 racks in or something. Okay, just make sure you know where your stuff is. Every year you'll see people that are lost, that can't find their bike. It is stressful. So just in your head, remember exactly where your stuff is, or, get something that's distinctive on your bike. So that might be, the towel that you put your cycling shoes and run shoes on is bright pink, or, Sydney Roosters or something that you can spot. Okay, so you can pop that on the ground and make it easier to spot. That's definitely a good idea when you're out there. Okay, once you've grabbed your bike, like all triathlon, you must have your helmet on before you run out. So helmet on before you unrack your bike. You will run out, you will mount your bike here. I will be cheering at some point here, so don't stack it, otherwise I'll get a photo. And then as you go out, you'll start the bike leg from this position here. For the vast majority of people, you are probably better off to put your cycling shoes on in transition and to do the awkward run walk out with your cycling shoes on. If you are more experienced and you can jump onto your bike and put it on when you're riding, you've got plenty of time to do that when you get onto the regatta center straight when you're out there. But for the vast majority of you, would encourage you to probably do that in transition. The other tips that I have for transition is blister prevention is a big deal. If you get blisters later in the race, it makes running difficult. So I would always encourage people for half Ironman to wear socks for the bike and to change into another set of socks for the run. It only takes 30 seconds of time, but the thing is, if you don't get blisters, you will run faster and it's more comfortable. I would encourage you to fill your socks to some extent with talcum powder so that your feet dry. Okay, so just remember, you're all swimming there for, let's say, 30 to 60 minutes. So your feet, the skin on your feet will be soft. So if you have some talcum powder, it can help dry your feet and prevent it from happening. I would always encourage socks for it. It's more comfortable, prevents blisters. Again, decide if you're going to, run out in your cycling shoes, which I think most of you should probably do. It's only if you can flying leap on your bike and do that quickly that you should bother not doing it that way. A big one that I see all the time at all Ironmans and half Ironmans is people have no idea what gear their bike is when they racked it. All right, so check that the gear that your bike is in is appropriate for mounting your bike. Every year I see people get out there and their bike is in the hardest gear on their bike. They go to jump on and they crash and they fall off, or they can't get it going, or they drop their chain or whatever because you're not thinking particularly straight at that point in the race. So make sure your bike is in the big chain ring and probably halfway through the rear cassette, and that's probably an appropriate gear for everyone in this group to jump on their bike. Race morning could be cold. So if you are prone to getting cold, it's perfectly okay to take a cycling vest or to take arm warmers when you're out there. So there's always a few that, are fairly skinny or just suffer from the cold. So it's okay to have that stuff. Those things can be easily rolled back up and chucked into a back pocket when you're out there. So if you do get cold on race morning, arm warmers and a wind vest can be a good idea, because remember, you're going to get out of the water and then it could only be, it's 20 degrees outside at the moment, so there's a good chance it might only be 16 degrees on a race day. So just make sure you've got stuff warm enough to be there. If you're not racing, if you are there to just get through the day as well as possible, by all means, get off the bike, have a breather, have something to eat, then grab your bike. Okay, it's fine to take 30 seconds and just pace yourself through the day. If you're going to be out there 5, 6, 7 hours, when you're out there 8 hours, it's okay to stop and just mentally check one off and get on to the next one. The other tip that I'll give you is when you get onto the bike, it can be really crowded in that spot. You do not have to get on your bike immediately after the transition line. You just need to get on the bike at some point during the bike leg. All right, so it's perfectly okay to get past the transition line and to run another 20 meters to get away from everyone and then jump on your bike. It's not always your bike skills that are a hassle. It's sometimes the people around you aren't great at mounting their bikes. So just run through them, pull across to the side, jump on in your own pace, and then get going. But particularly, when you're getting out of the water and you're in that sort of bell curve of busyness, it can get a bit chaotic there at the transition line. All right. Has anyone got any questions about T1 or transition 1? No? All right. The bike course will have potholes, so get ready for that. But it is relatively flat when you're out there. So the bike course is also one that you do want to go check which way the course goes, because it is a 2-lap course, but there are a couple of dog legs and bits and pieces in it. So you will start at the regatta center, you will go halfway up the regatta center, and you'll go out. You'll actually do a little dog leg as soon as you get out. Then you'll go out to the main drag. You'll go up, through, out, in. Okay, but then you come back to here, and then you start the second leg out. Okay, and then you'll repeat the same thing again. But on the last lap, you'll come in, you'll do the dog leg, and then you'll come back into the regatta center when you're out there. So it is a 2-lap course, but you are not following all parts that you see here exactly twice. you don't go back up this section twice either. The things to be aware of just on race day, there's potholes, so just be aware of that. In general, it's pretty flat, so it's pretty easy from that perspective. There's nothing really of note in the course, to be honest with you. Jody, you've done this course, 4 or 5 times. Have you got anything you want to add to the difficulty of that course? I'm underselling.
I was just going to say because I rode the straight out and back bit about a month ago, wasn't too bad, except there's still a couple of potholes, bumpy bits at the bottom of the hill. So where you come down from the church, the only hill that's there, but there are a couple of big bumps at the bottom of that. And a couple of people came off there last year. Last year, the driftway part still had a few potholes, but was far better than the year prior. So it wasn't terrible there. And there's just a bits of gravel and stuff, but it's not terrible. Yeah.
So it sounds like an improvement on, probably 2 years ago when they were painting the potholes with circles so you could see them. But the course itself is reasonable when you're out there. In terms of the bike, so the bike is a huge part where pacing is really important. It's also a part of the race where, in the swim, kind of going off feel, you don't have any data to help you. The bike, you definitely, you know how long you've been out there. Everyone's got a watch or some sort of bike computer or something. A lot of you will now have power meters on your bike. A lot of you will have heart rate monitors to use when you're out there. So I'm going to talk about the bike in terms of pacing. The bike is the place where you try to keep your heart rate down. The bike is the place that you set yourself up to have the best run that you can. So the bike is not about getting the best bike leg. The bike is about getting the best bike leg that you can to still get the best run leg that you can get. So if you get a faster bike leg, great. But then if you run 20 minutes slower because of it, it's not as good. So you have to pace yourself accordingly when you're out there. The couple of tips that I will give for pacing as well as nutrition is the bike is a 3-hour buffet. You are going to eat as much as you can tolerate when you're out there. So Nadine sort of said 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour. When you're on the bike, your heart rate is going to be lower than what it is on the run. You also don't have the vertical bouncing around when you're out there either. You are also not going to sweat as highly. So you're going to find it's easier to process food on the bike. So definitely push the nutrition in. I would encourage you to eat real foods on the bikes where possible, just so that you have your energy being slowly released rather than just quick release of sugars all the time. You can do that on the run when you're out there. In terms of when you're out there, if you use a power meter, hopefully you know what your functional threshold power is or your FTP. Someone who is going to be out there for, say, 4 hours should probably be pushing about 70% of their threshold power. Someone who thinks they can do the bike leg in under 2.5 hours should probably be pushing about 85% of that number. So how hard you can push on the bike really depends on your predicted race time when you go through. All right. As a general rule, I would say most of you should be aiming for about 80%. Okay. So not aerobic, as in not easy, but it's not hard, but it will get a little bit uncomfortable towards the end. That will probably give you your best bike time when you're out there. You need to make sure that your heart rate stays down. Don't be surprised, especially if you're a newbie to it, if your heart rate is quite high coming out of the water. Part of that is that when you go from being vertical in the water to then running, transition, you're a bit nervous or anxious, heart rate's high. Just trust your power meter and just keep your heart rate sensible. You'll find your heart rate will probably slowly drift down to normal, but it's quite common on race day for heart rate to be a bit up, and that's just nerves, anxiety, excitement when you're out there on race day. The course itself is reasonably flat. All right, you do want to try to hold the same power all day. So it doesn't matter whether it's the first kilometer, the last kilometer, uphill, downhill, bumpy section, you want to hold the same power. Okay, that's the ideal for when you're pacing yourself. Whatever speed you get is the speed you get. So if your target is 200 watts of power, you do 200 watts of power uphill, you do 200 watts of power on the flat. You try to keep it smooth all day. What that means is on the flat bits, you're going faster. When you're going uphill, you're going slower. but your power stays the same. That is always your goal, to get the best run time as well as the best bike time. Do not push up the hills. If you see other people go hammering up the hills and then you catch them in other sections, just let them do it. It'd be the same as, running. Everyone normally adjusts their running speed accordingly, depending on the terrain. But on the bike, everyone seems to just push hard in the hard bits. Just spin up the hills when you're out there. So whatever cadence you've got. So for most of you, it's going to be like a 90 cadence, and 80% of your FTP, you just hold that over all terrains when you're out there. Your bike leg needs to give you the best run leg that you can do when you're out there. Okay. The other things is every 30 minutes, try to eat something, and make sure you're drinking at least every 30 minutes as well. So it's not a bad idea to set a timer or something that beeps at you if you can. Otherwise, just be aware that, every 30 minutes you stop, sit up, have your gel, have your Cliff Bar, have your banana, whatever it is you're eating. Once you've done it, drop back down. Make sure you're keeping an eye on your hydration. So, most of you should be going through about a bottle of fluid every hour. So if you're out there for 3 hours, you should know, look, I need to be drinking about 3 of these, okay? The one caveat to that being, if it's 15 degrees, you're not going to drink as much. If it's 38 degrees, you're going to be drinking more. But just keep a rough idea of how much fluid you're getting. You don't want to finish the whole 90K and realize you drank half a bottle of water, because it's not enough for later down the day. The other one is it's 90K, so it's a long bike ride. So just break it up into chunks. So you've got 2 laps out there. So, it's pretty easy to go, out, back. There's 1 out, 1 back, out again, back, break it up into 4 sections. And it just makes it a little bit easier mentally when you're out there as well. A couple of things I will show you is just those of you that are data junkies or used to seeing technical stuff. I'm just going to show you what good pacing looks like, and also the difference between pushing too hard and pushing too easy. So this is a chart. This red stuff you see here is a heart rate. The purple thing you see here is someone's power profile. So this is someone, power inevitably is quite jumpy, and you'll see the odd section where there's big drops or whatever. You'll find this is, going around corners and bends and places where you can't hold your power, or maybe going down a hill. But ideally what you want to see is, this person's target was, it looks like it was 200 watts, and, their power stays in a relatively tight band from start to finish. You don't see them, the power up here and then finishing slowly down here. That's what you want to avoid. You want to make sure that your power in the opening 30 minutes and your power in the closing 30 minutes is exactly the same, okay? And you also want to see that once your heart rate settles, same thing. You just see the heart rate going in a straight line, or ever so slightly increasing as the effort level to keep the same power goes through, okay? What you see in a lot of people that are just going off, say, feel, is maybe the heart rate goes in a straight line, and you see the power just goes backwards because their output is going backwards relative to their effort level when they're out there as well, okay? So your goal is to keep smooth power, smooth heart rate when you're out there. This is, for all the guys that I coach, I always run estimates for how long it's going to take. So it's helpful for planning to make sure we know how many watts to push, but also nutrition, how much we need, how long to expect to be out there for. I'm using this as an example just to show everyone the difference between going too hard in terms of time and going at the right level. So this is a guy that I coached that was about 90 kilos, and his target power for the day was about 185 watts. Okay, so if he holds that power output, his estimated time is about 2 hours 40 when he's out there. So great. We know, look, ballpark, 2 hours 30, 2 hours 50. It's going to be in that little window. Generally speaking, these are accurate to about 5 minutes, as long as the race conditions are okay and you behave when you're out there. The reason I always do this is to show them, look, if you hold 180 watts, you'll run well off the bike. But if you choose to push harder, what time gains do you get? So for this person here, if they go from 185 to 209 watts, so 20 watts harder, he will gain about 7 minutes, okay? And the same thing, if he goes about 15 watts easier, he loses about 6 minutes when he's out there, okay? But what I always put to people is, if you go this wattage here and you gain that 7 minutes, I guarantee you are not running the whole half marathon anymore. Okay, or you are not keeping speed. So if this guy does this and he runs perfectly, but he blows up at kilometer 19.5, he'll end up with a negative time, okay, because he went too hard on the bike. But also at the same time, if he really backs off, and this will feel really cruisy to him, okay, he's only 6 minutes slower. So maybe he does that and he has a cracking run. All right, so for those people going out there for the first time, always be on the conservative side because the run is where the time is really made or lost when you're out there. As long as you're out there and you're sort of riding, if you've got no power meters or toys like that, just go ride at 7 or 8 out of 10 for perceived effort, and you'll get off the bike feeling okay when you're out there. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Simmer.
Yeah, if you don't have a power meter and you're just going off, I guess the next best thing is that heart rate. And
yeah, heart rate's always the next best thing, and your perceived effort level. So the thing that I'll say, just what you want to avoid when you're out there is, the heart rate is a lagging indicator. So, for example, if you went and did a massive 15-second sprint and then stopped straight away, your heart rate will only just start to blip up, and then it'll drop straight back to what it was because it's not long enough for the heart rate to really react in terms of what you're doing. So what I would say is if you're, out there riding normally and I know you ride the M7 bike path. So if look, my heart rate when I'm normally out on the M7 bike path is 150 beats per minute or something like that, then just go out there and just aim to replicate that because that's something that you can kind of do. That would be the best way to do it. And then I would say, look, the ride's always easier in the opening half because you tape it off, you're not tired, you're excited. So just start at sort of 7 out of 10 because chances are you're going a bit quicker than you normally would because of the excitement. And then you can always just settle into a rhythm. So just remember you're out there for 90K. So just don't go too hard in that opening hour when you're out there. But heart rate is the best indicator. And heart rate, hopefully you've got some existing Strava files or Garmin files or something. Just go have a look at what your heart rate is in training and then just go, okay, I'm race day, I'm going to replicate that.
Yep, thanks.
So, all right. Has anyone else got a question on power and heart rate? No? All right. The aid stations are different to all the short course races. So you have aid stations where you can grab water, you can grab electrolytes, you can grab food or gels and whatever. And there's also bathrooms and rubbish bins. So there will be a couple of these on the course. So some of you may choose to carry all your food and drinks for the whole ride. And, if you can finish the ride in 2.5 hours, that's very doable. If you're going to take 4 hours to finish, you're probably going to have to grab something off the course as you go through. What they will give you is the aid station will be here and there'll be volunteers there stacking it. But this is the order at which you can grab stuff. Okay, so if you're approaching the aid station, generally what you'll do is you'll pull right across the left-hand side and slow down. So just remember, if you are going 15 kilometers an hour, that is 4 minutes per kilometer. So if you expect the volunteer to run next to you and pass you stuff, just remember 15 kilometers an hour for you is 4-minute K pace or 20-minute 5K pace for them. So slow right down so that they can actually run and give you what you need. You'll come up here and you'll yell out water or Gatorade or whatever it is they're providing or Cliff Bars at them, and then they will generally run out and pass it to you. The official rules say you cannot stop as you go through, but on a practical basis, you can. Okay, no one's going to stop you. If you're not comfortable taking your hand off a bike to grab a bottle of water that's wet when they're passing it to you, just pull over, grab what you need, clip back in and start back up with your bike. There will also be rubbish bins. So if you want to chuck your old water bottles because you're not carrying them anymore or your food stuff, you can do that. And if you need to go to the bathroom midway through, there are bathroom stations there as well that you can use. Okay, a couple of things when you go through, just be mindful of the fact that some people don't probably think through what they're doing that well. So you do see the odd dropped water bottle that, they've tried to grab and haven't grabbed onto. They're flying across the road. So just be aware of that. But if you're going to go through, just sort of keep to the left, get as close as you can, grab what you need. As soon as you've got it, just check, pull back out, and then go through when you're there. Has anyone got any questions about the aid stations and how they work at the bigger events? No, everyone's comfortable with that. So maybe if you need to practice holding your left arm off the bike to grab the drink bottles when you're out there. The exit of the bike. So when you get off the bike, the couple of things I'd say, look, in the last 5-10 minutes of your bike leg, maybe just back off a little bit and just get your legs ready. So don't push the pace too much. Just get your legs ready for the run. Dismount at an appropriate speed. Okay, so as someone who's watched lots and lots of half Ironmans and Ironman events, again, remember that 15 kilometers an hour on the bike is 4-minute K pace. So if you try to dismount at 15K an hour or 20K an hour, you are running really quickly when you land. Okay, so just make sure that you dismount at an appropriate speed so your bike doesn't go flying up in the air and you don't stack it when you're there. Make sure you dismount before the line. Okay, you must be running across the line. You cannot ride over the line when you're out there. Would always recommend that you probably, for most of you, change socks, again, for blister prevention when you're out there, and would encourage you again to put some talcum powder in them and in your runners just to make sure your feet stay dry when you're out there. I generally tell people to avoid elastic laces for long distance events, purely because your feet will expand. So the tightness that you set those laces is lovely when your feet are normal, but when you're 5, 6, 7 hours into an event and your feet are expanding, it can get really tight on your feet when you're out there. If that happens and you've got normal laces, you can just loosen it up. If you've got the elastic laces, a little bit harder to kind of do. When you leave transition, you can also grab more nutrition. So you might have more gels, you might have, Panadol or something with you that you want to take with you, or some salt tablets. You can get all that stuff in your transition as well when you're out there. Has anyone got any questions about the second transition or how it works? It's all pretty straightforward for that one. Okay, the run. So the run is a little bit convoluted in where you kind of have to go. So definitely be aware of where the course goes. You do 2 laps, and then basically on the last lap, instead of turning around here, you will continue up and run a big loop of the regatta center to finish off. So when you come in off the bike, you will come in here, you'll ride down here, you'll do some sort of dog leg around here and get into transition. You will then, the very first thing that you do will be run out of transition, and you will run over the bridge. Okay, once you run over the bridge, you'll come through here, you'll run out of the regatta, you'll run up to the church, you'll come back from the church, you will run up a big false flat hill to here, you will come back in, you'll go into here, you'll run out to there, you'll run back in, and then you'll turn back around near transition. That's 1 lap. Okay, you do that again. And then on the last lap, instead of coming back in and running to there, you will just continue to run up and through. If you have friends and family, I would encourage them to probably hang somewhere in this area where most people are, because you cross this little central path lots of times. So they'll see you lots, they can cheer for you lots, they can hold signs for you and whatever else when you're out there. A couple of things to remember for the run course, obviously pacing. So for the vast majority of you, if you are going to be out there for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, you need to make sure that your pacing is appropriate. So don't run hard. I would encourage a lot of you to have a walk-run strategy, and that might be running from aid station to aid station, okay, which might be, look, each aid station is about 2 Ks apart. So you might mentally go, look, I'm going to run 10 to 15 minutes at a time. They're going to walk the aid stations. For other people, it might be, hey, look, I'm just going to try to run 4 minutes. I'm going to walk for 30 seconds. I'm going to run for 4 minutes. Okay, and do that for as long as you need to until you feel good enough to finish it off. That is another really good strategy. Other people, you might be just running to heart rate. So as soon as your heart rate gets up to a certain point and your energy system starts burning too much sugar, you'll start to walk to keep your heart rate back down. So your strategy for the run is not what gives you the best feeling about your ego. Okay, it's about what's going to give you your best time over 21.1K. So sometimes you need to realize that the fastest way is not running as hard as you can, or trying to tough it out. You can't out-tough physiology. You need to find the pace that works for you. And for a lot of you, that will mean just taking regular walk breaks when you're out there as well. Okay. In terms of pacing for the run, if you're going to be out there for, I'm going to say, longer than 2 hours on the run, you need to definitely make sure that you're keeping your pace as aerobic as possible. Okay, so when I say aerobic, I mean lower heart rates, which means you burn more bodily fat, less bodily sugar. If you think you can finish this run in, maybe an hour 30, you can probably run a little bit harder. So this is an example of someone with zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and then, anaerobic stuff up here. Running in zone 2 and keeping your heart rate down is a great idea for if you're going to be taking 2 hours plus, okay? If you think that you can do the run in under an hour 30 or something like that, you can probably run up to here and you can keep your heart rate at a higher level, but only because you can finish it faster when you're out there. Ideally, what you want to see is the same as this graph, where you see the heart rate is more or less a straight line going sideways or an ever so slightly increasing one, okay? And you can see that the pacing, which is the green line, is more or less the same from start to finish as well, okay? So you should all by now know roughly how quickly you can run, All right. So when you're out there on race day, and particularly when you start the race and run out of transition, just make sure your pacing in the first kilometer is appropriate. And also remember that your first little part of the run is running up over the bridge. Okay. So it might not be a bad idea to have a little jog, walk up over the bridge, set yourself. All right, cool. Now we're going to get ready for this run when we're out there. Okay. There is an aid station for the run. They can give you plenty of nutrition tips, but I would encourage people not to eat real food on the run. I'm actually just a big fan of Coke and water for people to take on the run. I think it's nice and easy. Sugar gets into your system. You get a bit of caffeine, and off you go to the next aid station. But there will be plenty of stuff there. There'll be from the toilets, there'll be water, there'll be whatever sponsors, electrolyte drinkers on the course, and some gels and stuff like that. But I would encourage most of you to probably just go run to the aid station, cup of Coke, cup of water, run to the next one, do the same thing repeatedly when you're out there. Some of you will have urges to have salt or other bits and pieces. Do what your body's telling you to do is usually a good thing to do when you're out there, but try to keep it nice and simple. And I'd encourage not eating too much food to bounce around your stomach, because you probably won't be able to break it down on race day as well. Okay. Tips for the run. So number one is pacing. All right. So whatever your long, easy run pace is most likely going to be your run pace for race day. Okay. Unless you can run, a sub 130, hour 30 for the half marathon, chances are just keeping your heart rate aerobic. I would encourage you to do that until at least halfway through. And then if you feel amazing, pick up the pace. But for most people, they're just going to try to hang in as best they can from there. All right. Heart rate is usually your best guide. The vast majority of you would expect will have a Garmin or whatever watch to tell you your pace. So just make sure whatever pace is on your watch is appropriate. Okay. So if you run 6-minute K pace in training and you see 450 pace on your watch in the first K, you're not going to set PBs. Okay. So just back off and just slow it down a little bit to something that's more realistic when you're out there, and save you, that effort for your park run later down the stage track. All right. Run walk strategy is what I would encourage most to do, even people that are doing quite quick. So if you're an advanced runner, I would still encourage you to walk the aid station, even if it's just a 10-second walk, purely just so that you can get the cup of water and the cup of Coke in. Make sure you swallow it all. You don't get it all over your face and all over your dry suit. Okay, cool. And go again. It's much easier to do the half marathon when you realize it's just 10 aid stations. All right. So you run to the first one, tick. Run on the next one. There's 2. All right, you're already 2 of 10 in. Okay, it's a much easier way to break down the race when you're out there. If you need to bathroom break, I would encourage you to do that earlier rather than later. 1, because they get kind of gross. But 2, you don't want to be trying to run, needing to go to the bathroom at the same time when you're out there. Does anyone have any questions about the run when they're out there? What happens, pacing, heart rates? One's pretty over it. All right. I always encourage everyone, you've got your plan for everything going right. But I also tell people you need to have a plan for when things go wrong. All right. It's much easier to be aware of the things that can go wrong and know how to manage them on race day than be stuck there and just sort of a bit lost as to what to do and sort of panicking when you're out there. So I'm going to go through the things that can go wrong, and I'm going to give you solutions for it. It's much easier if you know, okay, if I cramp, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. And that way you can make a decision that you made when you were calm and you just implement it on race day and get on with it, rather than just trying to barrel through when you're in that day. So first thing I'll say is don't try anything new on race day. So don't try brand new shoes. Don't try a brand new wetsuit. Definitely don't try brand new nutrition that you took from samples of the day before at the expo. Stick to whatever you do in training. Okay, and replicate that when you're out there. Don't do anything special the day before in terms of your eating. Okay, so don't decide to eat 8 liters of drink 8 liters of Gatorade for all the electrolytes. Don't eat 2 kilos of pasta in preparation. If you drink too much the day before, you will just flush out all your electrolytes, and now you'll be in a deficit, even though you tried to do the right thing. And the same thing, if you eat too much, you're just going to find it sits in your stomach and bounces around, and you need to go to the bathroom when you're out there. So don't try to do anything particularly special when you're out there. The common nutrition things that will go wrong on race day are usually because you're dehydrated, you're eating too much, or sometimes you're not eating enough, okay, when you're out there. So a common one is bloating or burping. Those are your body's warning signs that it is not digesting your food properly. Okay, if either of those happen, stop taking on calories, slow down a little bit, okay, and usually just increase your fluid intake just a tiny bit, okay? Or if you feel like you've drunk too much, just stop that as well, back it off, and let your body process what it's doing. Because if you start adding food and calories on top, they're just going to go into the queue and they're not going to get processed either, okay? So if you start feeling bloated or you start burping, they're the signs that your body cannot process the amount of food you're putting through it, and you need to back off the eating when you're out there, okay? If you start feeling flat, it's probably a sign that you're not taking in enough, all right? So that's a sign that, look, you probably should be trying to intake particularly the high sugar stuff, so your gels, your Cokes, your things like that. When you start feeling flat, go find the stuff that's going to get straight into your bloodstream as quickly as you can, and that's when you go for that stuff. The other one that I'll add is if you start feeling really cranky halfway through the bike leg or the run at everyone around you, you are probably low on blood sugar, all right? So I've definitely recalled doing races where someone has told me off randomly for stuff, and it's because they're low on blood sugar. So just make sure if you start realizing on the bike and things that are irritating you, go find some Coke, go find a gel, or go find a Allen's Lolly Snake from somewhere, and you'll start feeling a bit better. The really big one is also cramping. Okay, so cramps, typically your muscle cramps, typically won't happen in training. They are much more likely to happen on race day. So cramping will generally occur under two circumstances: when you're going further than you ever had, which is probably most of you, and if you're going harder than you ever have, which is hopefully not you guys, because you're going to pace yourself appropriately. But if you do start cramping, it's a electrolyte imbalance, but they don't quite understand how it works. And I'm not going to go into it in full detail, but basically, if you can get salt underneath your tongue, it should reset something in your brain that says we're safe. You don't have to cramp anymore. Okay, so there's an old wives' tale of you cramp and you have pickle juice, which is pretty salty, and they pop it underneath the tongue. You swill it around. You don't even have to swallow it. You just have to swill it around the mouth to get some of it to absorb in, but also so that it resets something in the brain when you go out there. So it's a good idea to have a little flask filled with table salt, and maybe some magnesium powder in there as well, and to carry that and make it super disgustingly salty. And if you do start to cramp, you can just swirl that around your mouth. The other thing you need to do is you need to slow down. So if you are running and it happens, really back off the pace, maybe even to walking, and just rationalize it yourself that if you walk 1 kilometer in the half marathon, you're going to lose about 5 minutes, all right? But if you can run after that, you can get back on track. But if you try to push through the last 10, 12 Ks cramping, you are going to lose an hour. All right. So just be aware of that one when you're out there. The cramping, if it starts on the bike, same thing. Just take the flask, swill it around the mouth, back off the power. The cramps will hopefully go away, and then you can get back on with what you're doing. Okay. Dehydration shouldn't be an issue, I don't think, for this time of year, as long as you're sensible around the amount that you're drinking. Okay. But just be aware that you should be going through about 500 to 750 mils of liquid an hour. Okay, if you're a smaller female, you're not going to go through as much as a 6'2" male, but just have a general idea of how much drinking on the bike. And then when you get to the run, cup of water, cup of Coke. If your body's telling you it needs more fluids, drink more when you're out there. It'll give you a good indicator of what's going on. All right. Mindset for me is a really big one. So there's the old saying, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And I've always believed that to be true with everyone that I've dealt with. So when you're out there, you need to talk positively yourself from the start through to the finish. Okay. So, and when this is relevant is things like, you go out there with an expectation that you're going to swim 35 minutes in the swim, and you go to the swim and you get out and it says 42 minutes. Okay. And then your day turns into a spiral because you think you're having a bad day. And what you don't realize is that for whatever reason, everyone's swim time that day is slow, and 42 is a good time for that particular day. So you need to make sure that you stay positive throughout the day. So, when you're passing friends, family, me, we're all going to cheer for you and say you're doing a great job. But when you're in those parts of the course, which is most of it, where you're not going to see anyone, you have to be telling yourself, I feel good. I'm running well. I'm cycling well. I don't feel tired. I feel good. You will react to all those things. All right. So it's really important that you keep yourself motivated during the day. The other thing is, breaking the day down. So when you're in the swim, don't be thinking about the bike or the run. You just think about the moment of what you're doing. So in the swim, you might just think about, your technique. I got to swim to that point. Focus on my technique. Okay, turn around that buoy. Break it down. On the bike, you got 2 laps. So it's out and back twice. So break it down in your head. And on the run, definitely don't think about running 21.1K. You think about running to 10 aid stations. So run to the first one, you're already 1 of 10 down. You run to the next one, you're 2 of 10 down. Okay, and it makes the day a lot easier when you're out there. Okay. The other one is just focus on yourself when you're out there. So, triathlon's a selfish sport. You only have to worry about yourself, but don't worry about too much about what's going around you, your friend that you're racing, someone's having a good day, bad day, whatever. Just focus on what you're doing, and you can check on everyone else later on, and just stick to your race plan and your process. So if you're out there and, there's someone that you train with and they've put their foot down, they've taken off on the bike, just let them go. You'll either see them later in the day on the run, or they'll have a great day and they're gonna beat you, and it is what it is. So just stick to your plan and what you're doing when you're out there on race day. All right. The tips for things when things go wrong. So always have just a little plan in your head to cover these things off. So in the swim, you can lose your swim goggles or they can be fogged. All right. So I would encourage you, if you lose them, just suck it up and swim the rest of the way without goggles. All right. If they fog up, it's perfectly okay to swim to the side, take the goggles off, cover in water, rinse it out, put them back on, and off you go. You'd be better off, spending 20 seconds doing that than trying to swim 1.9K and not be out of sight when you go through. If you get knocked around in the water, same thing. You don't have to swim next to people. If you're anxious about the swim start on the far edge. As soon as everyone jumps in, swim another meter to the side, and you can go swim the 1.9K on your own. Okay, so there's no need to be around other people because of the race start is not the exciting mass start anymore. The odds of getting knocked around in the water are much lower. And if you're going around things like the swim buoys, just take a wide berth when you're around there. So just control that when you're out there. Water, temperature, and wetsuits. Take a wetsuit if you can. When you jump in the water, it may be cold. So it might even be a good idea before the race is just walk down and test the temperature of the water so they don't get a rude shock. You kind of know what you're in for when you get in the water. Okay. If you do get anxious in the water, that's okay. Swim to the side, just breaststroke, just, doggy paddle in the water, just tread water, grab onto a kayak until you calm yourself down. Once you calm, head back down and off you go again. Your bike. Most things on a bike going wrong can be mitigated by making sure your bike is serviced between now and race day. Okay, so if you haven't had your bike serviced or it's not currently in getting serviced, I would encourage you to do that to make sure that they check everything, make sure gears are tuned, make sure anything you haven't discovered wrong is checked before race day. Flat tires, are uncommon, but can happen. But again, if you've got relatively new tires, you should be fine. If you know how to change your tire, make sure you've got all the stuff on your bike so that you can do it. Mechanical issues, again, if you know how to fix it, great. But the best way to mitigate that is to make sure you have your bike serviced in the lead up so you don't have any problems. If you lose your power meter and it doesn't read on race day, use your heart rate. Don't sit there trying to waste time getting it to work. If it's not straightforward to do, just accept that it's not working. Just go off feel and heart rate and you can deal with it later. Same if you lose your heart rate monitor, just use your power meter and trust that. If both fail, your bike computer fails altogether, you just go off feel, okay, in terms of what you're doing. It's good to have a basic toolkit with spares when you're out there. A lot of you will have tubeless tires now on your bike. So I would encourage you, most of you, to just set them up with tubeless sealant so that if you get a flat, it will seal itself. That would be the best thing to most people do when they're racing. If you don't have the capacity to do that on your bike, getting an inner tube and knowing how to change it is your other option when you're out there as well. Okay. On the run, the main things that can go wrong are you can cramp, which I've addressed already. Get salt under the tongue in your mouth, so make sure you prepare your little solution that you've got somewhere. Blisters, you can get little blister packs and stuff if need be, but you can mitigate that in a half Ironman, particularly just by changing into socks and having some talcum powder and not using brand new shoes that you've never used before. And just getting tired. Okay, so tired is okay. It's normal to get to the end of the race and be tired. That's okay. You just do your best when you're out there and you pace yourself accordingly, okay, when you're out there. All right. The finish shoot is something I always talk about to everyone. And I always tell everyone, you've all been gifted a body that can train for these events and can finish these events. So when you get to this point in the race, just make sure you enjoy that final 50, 100 meters of the race. Okay, go hug friends and family that encourage you to be out there. If you want to set a PB, sprint down it. If you're just out there and just want to finish the day, take your time and enjoy the fact that you're down there. Smile and be thankful that you're out there. So as someone who's coached for a long time, I've seen people that, try to finish because it's such a big deal. And I've also seen people that, are 2 minutes slower than they planned and they're really upset about it. And so I think when you're out there, you've always got to keep this perspective that, there's people out there that can't do these things and all of you people can. All right. So just be really, really grateful that you're able to get to that point and just enjoy it. If you're not in a rush to set a, sub 5, sub 6 hour time or something, it's 5 hours and 36 minutes. Just take your time and enjoy that last little stretch of the day, because you're going to have to run all the way up here and around and you're going to see it for a long time before you get to run down the chute when you're out there. All right, that is the end of the presentation. Obviously, Coach, if you want help with coaching or training plans or race prep for the race, by all means, contact me. It's not too late to get that stuff in place. But I'm here to answer questions. So has anyone got any more questions that they would like me to cover off, or anything that I didn't cover that they'd like me to answer? No one? Oh, Jasmine, go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering, I don't have a car personally, so I was wondering if you have any tips for how to get to the race course without a car, and then like the transport getting there.
Where are you staying, in Penrith, or where are you staying?
I'm gonna stay in Penrith. I found an Airbnb room there. So it's pretty close. I think it's around 10-minute by bike. I was looking it up, but I know I won't have the bike for the morning of, so I was just wondering what I should do.
Honestly, the best thing's probably an Uber on race morning. There's definitely, you'll see, actually maybe Jody knows. Can you rack your bike on race morning, Jody?
You can. You've just got to get there super early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably say the best thing to do is to rack your bike the day before and then maybe pre-book a taxi or an Uber for race morning. And then I imagine an Uber would be fine. But I think you can advance book an Uber, I think, anyway. That I would probably do that, because if it's a 10-minute ride, it's too far to walk when you're out there. Definitely you'll see people ride their bikes in on race morning. There are some. But I would say just catch an Uber would be the best thing to do.
Yeah. It's also going to be dark at that hour, so it's probably not. I wouldn't want to be.
I wouldn't do it.
Even riding it, I wouldn't want to be doing that. Yeah.
No. Okay, yeah, good to know. Thank you. And then the other question I had was, I noticed you said something about like the wetsuit being required. In the past, the only 2 little triathlons that I didn't use a wetsuit just because it wasn't necessary. So I was just wondering if you have any tips for like which one I should get and that sort of thing. Because I've never seen one.
There's quite a few major brands to get. WS70 is probably, WS70 is probably one of the best ones. It probably depends on budget. You kind of get what you pay for in the tri-suit. So the more expensive the suit, the more panels they generally have, which means that it's usually easier to swim in. So, there's suits out there like $2,000 and they have lots of paneling, so it's easy to move your shoulder. You'll find the cheaper ones have less panels and they're just a bit more restrictive when you swim. But there is a wetsuit. There's a triathlon shop in Penrith that might be worth contacting that may have wetsuits there that you can try on. There's also the Aqua Shop in Gordon that typically has wetsuits to try on as well. Normally, if you had more time, I would say, look, you'd order it on the web when there's specials, because most wetsuits just have a height range and a weight range, and they're fairly flexible in neoprene. So unless you're in unusual shape, you can usually get one that way. But otherwise, going into a shop and trying one on if it's your first suit, or if you can't borrow one, is probably a good idea as well.
There's also Fast Gear, which is right near the QBB in town.
Yeah. Do they have many wetsuits? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they usually do. They do Orca. We've always bought ours there because you can go in, try them if you want, and he's actually pretty good.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
That's all right. Right. Has anyone else got any other questions? Hannah, it's your first time.
No, I'm pretty good.
You're pretty good. Rach, it's your first time.
Sorry?
Rach said you're.
Oh,
Rach said. your microphone's not working, Rach, or your camera's not
No,
working?
it's working now. Camera's not working.
Okay, all right. You're all good to go?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I hope so.
All right, you'll be fine. We'll be there.
You'll be fine, Rach.
Yeah, should be.
All right, Adam's done this before. Arthur, this is your first one, and Samar, this is your first one. So you guys know what you're doing?
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we'll
good,
figure it
thank
out.
you.
You'll figure it out. That's it.
Samar, have you worked out what you're doing with your contacts?
Yeah, I'm gonna wear them,
Okay,
and then
good.
but I'm also gonna have spare ones.
Just in case.
Yeah, because if my goggles start leaking, I'll just take my contacts off in the water.
Yep.
All right. So what I might do, I'm going to wrap.
Mention that I'll hang around.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be there for check-in. I'll go in like at the start of the day, and I'll hang around till about 11 o'clock if anybody wants some guidance on setting up or is nervous or wants somebody to hold their hand or anything.
So Jody will be there on race day. Oh, sorry, the setup day.
I'll be there on race day too, hopefully.
Yeah. And I'll be there. I'll be somewhere in the middle of the grassy hill, probably towards the grandstand on race morning as well. So if anyone needs anything, just come up and find me as well. Jody will be there, Nadine will be there, so we can help you with any last minute stuff or popping on wetsuits or anything that's worrying you on race day. I'll typically be there by sort of 6:30, 6 o'clock in the morning if everything goes to plan, so I can help everyone out as well. So what I might do, I'm going to wrap everything up. I will send a recording of this to everyone in the next day or so you can watch it again. But you'll also all have my email address. So if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to contact me. If you need any help with your race planning to get ready for race day, myself and Nadine can definitely help you out there as well. So if you sort of saw a lot of this and realized that maybe you need a bit more help, we're happy to do that. Just let us know as soon as possible so we've got enough time to help you guys out as well. Okay. Other than that, thank you guys for being part of it, and hopefully I'll see you all on race day.
See you all.
No worries, guys.
Thanks, Dan. See you later.
See you guys.